Hello, everyone. Hello, Vue.js also. Hello, everyone from all over the world if you're watching us right now. So, I'm very glad to make this happen today. This is our first time for Vue.js to have this virtual event. I've done a lot of actually different virtual events for different communities, but for the Vue.js also, this is the first time. And I'm so glad because we have two awesome speakers, two great friends. I know them for a long time, maybe a year or two, and they are going to speak for us about different things. So the first speaker which I'm going to introduce is Maya. Well, you probably know her. She's pretty famous in the community, and she's going to talk about performant component through customization. And then we're gonna have Tim. Whoa, awesome Tim with his new video blog and awesome stuff that he's producing. Very glad to see his video every maybe week, I mean, he's producing a lot of videos. He's gonna talk about that for sure. He's gonna talk about JAMstack, and he believes that JAMstack is future. Let's see why he believes. So he's gonna talk about that as our second speaker. So a few practical tips right now. If you are watching us, so feel free to send your comment, your question to the chat. I will take them and I will ask them. So after they talk. So don't worry about your question. Just feel free to ask anytime. I will pick them. And then after each talk, I will ask your questions from Maya and Tim. So, and then after both talks, we're going to have like a round table. If you have any question afterwards, feel free to ask, and then we're gonna talk about it. So I'm hoping that this one is going to be a great one for all of us. So I don't want to make you waited. So just I will bring Maya to the. Hello, Maya.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Where are you, Maya, right now? I know that you
Oh,
are in your home office.
yeah, I'm in Israel at home somewhere.
Yeah, fantastic. So how's the weather in Israel right now, actually?
Today we have a lot of rain, but in general, it starts to be very warm because it's starting of the switch between spring and summer. So that's very good. We got to walk around because we don't have to be in isolation as before, starting from this week, next week. So yeah, it's getting back to normal.
Fantastic. So are you ready for your talk then? I believe so.
Well, I guess.
Yes,
You-
absolutely. So, all right, good. So here is you go, and your presentation. I'm just gonna remove myself from the screen, and then the stage is yours.
okay, it's kind of funny to talk to my screen because it like it's like where's everyone? But
Yeah,
yeah,
we are in
okay,
backstage. No worries. So see you then.
yeah,
Go
okay.
ahead. The
See
stage is
ya. Thank you. So, hi everyone. So, I'll be the one who talk first because my talk is not as good as team. It's not about JAMstack. So, yeah, bear with me. I will be quick. So, let's talk about performance components to customization. Sound very complex, right? But before we dive in, let's allow me to introduce myself. Oh, God. Okay, here. So I'm Maya, and I'm a senior front-end developer at Cloudinary, and I'm also a co-maintainer of StorefrontUI, which is a component library that for e-commerce for Vue developer, and we have also a React version in progress. And I'm a founder of Vue and organizer of Vue.js Israel. If anyone here from Israel, say hi. And I'm a blogger that I write. I like to share my experience with JavaScript and Vue and any framework that interests me in on Medium, on Ultimate course, or my own blog, and of course on full stack training. Um, a lot of people ask me where I'm coming from. I'm from China, Korea, right? And so I decided to make a little bit of clarification that I'm from Vietnam. Yes, I'm living in Israel for almost more than a decade. Oh, that's a long time. And I'm expecting in less than 5 weeks, with about 4 weeks or so. Yep. And a bit about Cloudinary, which is my company that I work for. Because a lot of people ask me also, what exactly Cloudinary? We know that it's a cloud because it has cloud in the name, but what exactly they're doing? So yeah, we're doing a lot with media and digital assets management, anything related to image and video. Some fancy, some complex. Actually, I zoom in, you have an application with a lot of images, which is not a rare case anymore nowadays. And you have all of the images are very high resolution and very high quality, and of course it's heavy. So what you can do is that instead of deliver the same quality, the same the same heavy files to the client side, you can upload it to a third party or to Cloudinary and use Cloudinary as the transition and get URL that's already optimized with the same resolution, but in better size and smaller size with the URL. And we're using Puerto. You can also modify some transformation to make it smaller for the need of the website without actually have to keep the original image through the URL. Or you can do a little bit more things like gravity auto with cropping, like here, to get the avatar like in Facebook, or do a little bit crazy stuff like some effects or some stem effect just to be artistic. Everything can be done on the URL, on runtime, on client side. And yes, you can also define the format auto this way. The client will receive according to what browser they are using, like WebP for Chrome and other formats for Firefox, for Safari. Everything is optimized. That is about Cloudinary. So let's come back to our talk. So what is UI component library? Everyone knows it. Everyone hears it. Everyone probably uses it one or two times in their life, or maybe every time. Like Beautify, Bootstrap, Vueify, which is very famous for the community, or StorefrontUI, or Element UI, right? So what exactly component library? It's component. But yeah, so component in component library means it has to be reusable, which means that if you have a sidebar, it has to be able to reuse the same sidebar for different purpose. Like the content can change, but the component have to be able to be used with different content as is. Stylable, for example, notification. You have a different notification bar, which can be some different color. The user can style according to their need. But if they don't like your style, they can also customize the component according to what they want. For example, an icon here that it look nice, but it may not follow the look and feel design on the client side. And client want to change it to some other icon that's not in your library, they should be able to do it. Or even change some functionality output of some UI output of the component. They should be able to do it. Responsive. Nowadays, we have to have responsive because no one only uses desktop anymore. You also use a mobile, especially on this period where everyone using a lot of device from laptop, from mobile, from desktop, from whatever shape of the device they have. It has to look good from both sides. And the component, it has to be isolated enough to reuse to you as is, and has to be stable, which is it has to be testable before delivered to user. One of the things that we don't like to use a component is that it's not tested. You cannot rely on something not tested, right? So, and you don't want to write another unit test just for the component. It's really painful. So that's why we switched to component library. Cool. So that sum up to component in component and UI component library means that it have to have visual consistency, which means the component have to have a set of default colors palettes that provide together with the library that as is, and user can just pick and choose and use it. Or we can call it the UI, which means the color will have to stand for a red color, have to stand for an error message, something that really needs an alert, something really needs your attention, and so on and so forth. And the other one is functional consistency. That means how the user understand how to work with your application on the first time they see the application. Let's say a sidebar user saw a sidebar. They need to know this is they need to understand how to work with it. They don't need to know, but they need to understand this is probably a sidebar. Click on this button. We'll close the sidebar. Click on the dark area. We'll also close the sidebar because that's how it works. The functional how users see and interact with your app from the first time without guessing. You don't want users to guess because they don't want to use it. If they have to guess, or a card also. Like a card button have to stand for adding to cart. If they click on it, it have to add to the cart. So that is the UX consistency or functional consistency of component in component library. The component is combined between these two, the UX and UI, which brings us to the fact that component library is not just building a bunch of code snippet for working on the client side. It actually defines the whole system, a whole design system from the beginning with style guide, with all the typography, baiting, color, branding, to anything related to design. Component is just a small part of it. In short, build a good component library means that you build a good design system. That's it. Let's talk now. So how do you select UI component library? Well, many of you probably already say it in the background that first it need to meet your goal, right? It need to meet what you are looking for. Like if you're looking for a day picker, the component library have to have the good day picker for you. Performance wise, it's very important nowadays because you don't want a component library that's very heavy and it takes a long time to load, like Bootstrap. It can cause a lot of damage to the application. Customizability, branding is important. Look and feel is important. They cannot have identical library from identical application from one to another using the same component library. They have to be able to customize it according to your needs. Simplicity, how simple to take it, use it, and ease of use, how simple to use it. That's all the criteria to select a component library. So first, how do you define the goal? How do users know that your component library is what they're actually looking for? Well, you never know. No one knows. I don't know. The users sometimes don't know what they're looking for. Sometimes they're just browsing and try different framework and see if it's really what they like, or they feel like, okay, this is working, they choose it. You never know. The best way to do it that you define your own goal, make yourself stand out at your own goal, plan around that, and create style guides, and then implement based on the style guide on the code. And all the time that to do revise the style guide to make sure that it's logical, realistic, it meet what the customer meet what the developer can do. And all the time doing the interacting like this in order to make the component library better and better. Basically, good planning is helped to have less breaking changes. Well, no one like breaking changes. Every time you upgrade from Webpack one version to another, it's so hard. It's like it's breaking everything in the annoying feeling. You still remember that, right? I also. But so it would not. It's hard to avoid breaking changes, especially in your early phase of the component library. But the better planning, the less breaking changes, The less breaking changes, the more happy users you have. So how do we define in StorefrontUI? Well, whether we want everyone needs component, have everything, every component in the world can think of, whether we want desktop or mobile first, well, we don't want any of this. We want to focus on one thing, is e-commerce. E-commerce is important, building on top on the component, building on the understanding of this is what e-commerce application is looking for. And we prioritize customization. Instead of making it a must do, we prioritize it among all the other factors. And because we understand that we focus on e-commerce, means that we have to support also look and feel and branding for all the e-commerce company, because every e-commerce company have different designs. It's important for the brand to make sure the customer don't feel like they're going from an identical sibling to another identical sibling. So this way, we can make the code compatible with for 80% of design case in mindset. So we always have to put customization and be compatible in our goal. And mobile first. In this period, anyone sitting there and order stuff from the laptop, or you just order online through your any device that you have, mobile phone device, for example, it's important. E-commerce rely on mobile, so we go for mobile first, and we design on mobile, and then we would make it responsive on desktop. Performance. Is it faster performance, but faster loading time for the component library? The app is everything. Well, in fact, performance is the combination between development and delivery. Development means that everything related to how you structure your code, how you define the implementation of your component, number of props, whether it's standalone, whether it needs any extra dependency, let's say a day picker, does it need Moment.js or any extra library that can increase the size? What is the direction of implementation and the structure of the code? It has to make sure that the next developer, which is very important in open source project, that the next developer may not be next to you, but is somewhere around the world, can go understand it and continue implementation easily. So simpler structure will have a faster development, faster pickup, faster delivery, and faster iteration of the component library, and user will have the new version faster. Delivery, this way, user will have to spend less time on installing, and the size for consumption can be smaller, because the less code you write, the better code you write, the size of the consumption will be much less, and also less work for bundling, and that costs less loading time, and that gives you the performance that you need. Customizability. Well, are you ready for your user with another developer, fellow developer, trying to break your component for their needs, or just because they don't like your design? That's very common, because not everyone likes anyone design in this world. So what is customizability? In fact, there's two things. When we talk about customizability, we talk about colors. We have a set of colors, and this is the default of component library on any component library. But user can choose a button like this is the default button. User can choose that he doesn't want the default color because it's ugly. His choice. He wants something like outstanding or different, like pinky color, or he doesn't want the padding like this, the default padding. Want a little bit bigger, or different font family, or even if you already have size, like a set of size, you can never know whether the user want a bigger size because it's not enough for him. So that is style guides customizability. It's including anything from color, theme, typography, padding, margin, and size. Anything related to style. The second aspect of customizability is how you allow user to choose to add different icons, to add another functionality that's out of the box, like out of the system that you provide, out of the default set of icon, which normally we provide so that user don't have to go and import from Awesomes or any Google icons, for example. Like, sorry, like in some cases, user from a company, especially, they have a set of icons that match the branding of their company. What you're going to do, this is the customizability based on component, which is icon, content design, functionality, anything that related to component functionality in general. So how do we customize current style guide? CSS class? No, that's definitely not. Because think about it. You have CSS class, then you need to make sure the order of appearance of CSS have to follow. So how you override it, how you make sure that it will not override each other by accident or someone override it, it's too much hassle, right? CSS variable, a bit better, but sometimes you will reach to this kind of error, which I did when I used StorefrontUI in one of the version of StorefrontUI in one of my demo projects. And it's like the bundle scream at you because they couldn't compile it. So you don't want to get into this situation. It's annoying. It's easy fix, but it's very annoying. So the best thing is using CSS variable because it's the built-in. You don't need an extra compiler, transpiler for this just to combine to normal CSS. It's supported by own browser except IE11. But again, I don't care about IE11. If you care, you need to write polyfill, which is also not a very hard things to do. How to do it? Very simple. You have roots. You define a set of CSS variable like this. And if you have a banner, for example, and you want to change the font family of this banner only, instead of making it so hard by changing font family properties of CSS in each of every element here, you can just change the variable of font family, and that will apply to this component only, like here. And it will keep isolated. It will use a scope. It will just apply to this specific component. That's it. How do you customize template? Let's say I have a button, learn more. Very simple button. This is how we do implement it in StorefrontUI. We have a button and we have a text. We see a text. But then users say, I want to add an icon. Okay, cool. We can have an icon property. We can have an icon position in addition to the left or to the right. But but I want to control the size. So we can also add another prop, icon size. But then the user say, but I want an icon click. I want to track some event on click of icon only and not click on the button. Cool. You say, let's add another prop on icon click. Well, how many props can you provide in order to cover all the case possible? Simply cannot. And plus, endless props is not going to solve the problem. It cannot solve the problem because you don't know how many use cases there are in order to fulfill everything. The best one is to have the button and to receive whatever inside add is, and then you have an icon as an icon and a text, which we use slot. And why we use slot? Because slot is the coolest thing about Vue. It's there for use. We got to use it, and it's work. So we have a button. This is how we implement the SF button in StorefrontUI. Have a button. We have only a very, very basic functionality. We accept anything inside a slot, which this way we can cover almost 80% use case from normal use case from user. And slot will cover the 20% left. We don't have to think about more props because more props is not performant at all. How do you customize icon? Icon is very interesting thing. Say normally we have a set of icon like a house here, and we can just put on, we can just pass the icon at the name and the size, everything that from the side guide, so user don't have to import and specific icon here anymore. But then if user have some cloud icon, for example, something that out of the box. So how do we allow user to render this icon? Well, first we saw that the icon is mostly single color because it's SVG, it's a combination of SVG paths. Because nowadays no one use image as icon anymore. It's just not performant. It's not good in performance. It's not good in resolution. It's a lot of things not good about it. And SVG is cool because it's in minimal form and it's scalable in size. That means you have an SVG, but you can expand it into a different, bigger, smaller, and you don't have to. It doesn't take a lot of effort to do it. Then the two things important in an SVG icon is the view box and the path. The view box is the box where the icon is, the path of icon is rendered according to it. And the path is how the SVG icon is drawn within this box. And from this box, you can change the size of the icon to something else, but have to be the same. It has to fit. The path and the view box is connected to each other very closely. So what we do, it will modify the icon will accept path, which is string, in addition to the default, the name from the default set. And then we have the icon. And if we want to make it purple, like here, we can also accept the CSS-friendly color. Or bigger, we can accept also CSS-friendly size. We leave the power of control to user. As long as user passed here and the CSS supported properties for size and color, it will be fine. We cannot try to control this fact for user. What happens if icon have more than one path, like this icon? Well, simply, we can also make the icon accept an array in addition to a string. And just that's it. So how about functionality? One very common, very good case I learned from my friends is that if you, for example, you have a radio button and you want to apply a click event on the label itself, and also the radio, like you click on the label and then you have the label and the radio doing something. But in material design, this is impossible, simply because the way they were implemented. As you can see, they implemented the radio button become the radio icon and the label, two separate things. And this, how will you go to put an on-click button, on-click event on both of them, or one for radio and one for label? That's a good case for functionality customizable, right? Cool. So next, how do you make your customer happy enough to use your component library, ease of use? No, and nowadays we have around less than 5 minutes to convince the developer to try, like it, and start using it in the application. Well, deliver, we ship it like a ship now. Well, no, not that simple. First of all, you can do bundle code. We used to do it. By the classic way, like you Vue StorefrontUI, for example, or you can also, in the back, what happened in the background is that they actually install install all the components. We don't want that. We can also do something like a demo, like beautify that you can select it. But the downside of using this approach is that either you include the whole library in production bundle, which is not effective. You only use one button. You cannot control over the bundle code and the CSS code, and you cannot control if think about it, like if you have to use one component in only one component specifically, like you're using the button on this place, Then you have to open the main.js and add this component inside the view.use just to make the allocator more work. It's a lot of context and how to say context switch. And it's not good because you have to switch between component to component. And if someone decided not to use that button anymore, then he need to remember to go back to the main.js to remove, or else you still install, you still include it in production code, which a lot of problem potentially. So we decided to use raw source code, which is import the button only in the component that is used. Import the one that user want to use in the file that user want to use it. It's an extra work, but it's more safe because once you don't use, let's say here, we don't use accept button anymore, then we can just remove the code here and it's removed entirely from the component. It's not working on browser as is because we need the bundling. But again, you have full control over bundle code, you have full tree shaking for optimization, and everyone using Webpack or any other bundle management tool nowadays. Anyone that don't use it, we like to use bundling tool, maybe. And how to organize code. So this one is simple. We have template. The template will be divided in standalone blocks with the proper name. We have CSS selector. We use BAM convention so that anyone read it will understand exactly how it works. BAM means block element modifier convention. And like here, you see alert and message. Props. We're using props, then it have to be clear and concise name. A message needs to stand for message. You cannot use on click that stand for message or anything that is weird. Slot. We're using slot a lot. And we're using scope slot, which means slot with a specific name. So if user want to override it, he know exactly where to override. Integrate. We support client-side rendering, server-side rendering with Nox or Scrism, and static site generator. With Scrism already have some template starter. And documentation. This is very good one. I really like to talk about this. How good about component? How do we use the component and how do users play or see to believe? This is what the documentation about is keep user engaged with your library, and this and make user actually decide whether they want to continue with it. So we use Storybook for how to set up, how to contribute, and whether my component library is the one for you. And that's when we use Vue Press. But writing is really hard. Documentation is not easy. So what we do is we automated whatever we can. And this is thanks to my teammate Eddie, who make it become an auto-generate process, which we transfer on the directory, take on the markdown and SCSS or CSS variable through regex, and then render into a placeholder document and generated it into the full document. This way you can write one documentation for component and it will be rendered automatically in every other place that needed to be. Simplicity. Is it simple enough for user to use? We use atomic design, which we break the component into atoms, or user can choose whether molecules like here are organisms. Sorry, I can never pronounce this one. Anyway, so item is something simple like button, icon. Molecules is something a combination of big, a combination of smaller items together, and so on. Or a template, which is a ready page for render the content inside, or everything. User can choose to choose one or choose everything to use. What else? We can use lazy load whenever and wherever. It's super good because it saves a lot of time to first byte. in the application, and you should adopt external optimization solution, especially image handling. So why not? It's there, use it. Don't overcomplicate it if you don't have to. Think developer first, because for component library author, developer is the user, and if he's not happy, no one is happy. So a little bit about StorefrontUI before we finish. So we are first component library for e-commerce with 100% customizable design system, 3 shakeable, performance oriented, yes, but prioritize customization. And we mobile first. And this is our team. A big shout out for our amazing team that been contribute to this framework for the last 2 years or so. And the demo, you can find my demo of the e-commerce application, which written on Vue with StorefrontUI and deployed in Zend. And the next thing in our what next for StorefrontUI, we have this table release, we have more demos, and we have accessibility compliance, because super important for e-commerce in general, and super important for anyone who wants. So, and lastly, please support StorefrontUI. Give it a star, contribute if you can, and join our team. We're looking for contributor, especially to make it stable enough to release and to make the React version work. So, thank you. That's it. Thank you very much for listening, for being with me. Any question, feel free.
Wow. Just wow. Woo. Thank you very much, Maya. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was awesome. So as expected, I'm just asking our awesome audiences right now. First of all, shout out to them. So we are fixed number around 16, 17, and that is very awesome. I really appreciate you are watching us right now. If you have any question from Maya, please feel free to write right now. If you don't have any question, or if the question comes to your mind during Teams talk, again, you can ask your question. I guess Maya can stay until end of Teams talk, right?
Yeah, it's JAMstack. I cannot miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Who can miss that?
And it's Team.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's see if Team is ready. Let's say
yes,
hi. Hi.
Let me just drink from my Cloudinary bottle.
Oh, wow. Come on. I think you should ask Cloudinary for sponsor this.
Sorry, this was just a joke between us.
Yeah.
When can I get mine?
Where's my unicorn? I need to look for my unicorn.
I need to find mine. Anyway.
Don't forget to send the unicorn to me too.
Oh.
All right. So, team, are you ready?
Yes, let me try to share my screen.
For a while, then yes, you share your screen. We say goodbye to Maya for maybe 30 or 40 minutes, and then we will come back to you again. So see you then, Maya. So let's see your screen, team.
Let's see, is it working?
Yes, it is working.
Let me
so
just
how are you?
Sorry?
How are you?
I am great. I've had a really long day at work, so I'm really happy to now just chill out and talk about cool stuff.
Yeah, that's very good. That here is a place that you can chill out, right? Another
yeah, well, I have to present, but that's still nice. I have to do my best.
Okay, at the end of the talk, maybe in our roundtable, you should tell us how you can be so productive. You know, people are asking you on Twitter, like, how can you do that? Do this, this is stuff. So you should talk about that too.
I can.
But
sure.
Meanwhile, people are waiting for your talk. JAMstack is the future. So you believe.
Well,
you should
maybe.
Tell us why.
Sure.
Tell us why. Then the stage is yours, team. So
great. Thanks very much. Let's do this. So thank you everyone for joining in. I'm shouting out to the audience because I know some people in there that are from all over the world and watching. So thanks for that. I think we're at like 16 or 17 people, which is great. So let's run this stuff. If there's any feedback or any questions, just quickly go to YouTube, ask your question, and we'll answer after the talk. So let's talk about JAMstack, because everybody talks about JAMstack and it's bigger and bigger all the time. And I think it's part of the future, but maybe not so much right now, but we'll see what we can come up with. So first we'll introduce me and the topic. Then why would we actually change from our current systems and go to the JAMstack? Then how JAMstack actually helps our current situation. Then demo time, because why would I do a talk about JAMstack if I didn't actually do the work? Like, I went super deep. I did an application with all the bells and whistles of what you could conceive as JAMstack. And then we'll conclude to see if it's actually the future. So let's introduce. So basically, everybody is talking about the JAMstack. There's actually JAMstack conferences. There's JAMstack meetups. That's amazing. Like, the front end is going to go to the front again. Like, people are really interested here. And basically, it feels like this. Oh, there's no sound. No, wait. That was me most of the times when I talk about front end. I hope that sound came through. Anyways, let's go. So this is what I think JAMstack is right now. It might be a bit controversial, but let's see what you guys think. So JAMstack is like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everybody thinks everybody else is doing it. So everyone claims they are doing it. Of course, if I did this at a JAMstack conference, this is kind of controversial, but here it's more about the few meetups, so I guess it's kind of fun. Of course, it's just a little joke, right? There's so much going around, so I thought, why not talk about it and actually make it more clear? So basically, JAMstack created this new paradigm of application architecture that we didn't really see before. We didn't see all the parts together. We did it separately, right? But now it's easier than ever to do this stuff. So why did we need that change? So what most systems do at the moment, or well, now that we're changing a bit to JAMstack, not all, but a lot of them do this, right? It's an all-in-one package of awesomeness that includes all your front-end code. It includes your web server most of the time. It includes like application servers like digital asset management, like Cloudinary does, for example, CMS, maybe product catalog, stuff like that, a bunch of databases. So basically, we call this the monolith. This is the one big chunk of software. So WordPress is one of those, Drupal is one of those, but then you have Sitecore and Adobe Suite and all the fancy expensive guys. They all do kind of this, and you can see there's a whole bunch of arrows here that are all moving around. So there's a lot of communication between all those things, but it's kind of one chunk that basically delivers a page to the user. So I see, or I have seen, a bunch of issues here, but we didn't really know how to solve that back in the day. Nowadays, that's different. So we see cost issues because those servers are very expensive. We see performance, security, all of those kind of things. So basically, let's go over those and see what are the actual issues. And the thing is, if you add more scale, if you have one Sitecore website with 200 websites in it, all of this is extra complex. So first of all, cost, because actually those systems, they have uptime all the time. All those servers are always alive, ready, consuming power, understanding each other, and all of the time being up, you pay for that, right? So keeping state is expensive. Then security. So the more architecture you have, so the more servers you have, the easier it is to actually get hacked, right? And things like Drupal and WordPress used to be like the most hacked platforms ever. Not right now. They really changed their game, but these kind of systems are just easier to hack, right? So power consumption, they're always on. So your carbon footprint of your website is pretty high if you need to have servers that are always running and constantly need to think about stuff and figure out where everybody else is to render one page. Even if you don't have visitors, they're still on. Consumes power, bad for the trees. Then you have scalability. So what happens if you have some sort of e-commerce system and you don't use the Vue storefront that Maya just discussed? You have one of those big e-commerce systems, let's say Hybris or stuff like that, and Christmas traffic hits. suddenly you have to deal with, like, if I get 1 million visitors here, what do I do? This server is falling over and everything is breaking. And basically what you do, you just pay a company a lot of money and they help you manage. This shouldn't really be needed, right? Not for 95% of the websites. So we did it this way for 20 years. So I kind of feel like this guy when I'm in front of clients. So, I see we have 2 comments. I'm going to quickly check. Oh, it's both Maya. Yes. So let's go back. Basically, we put our clients in this position, like coming up with all that expensive architecture. Like, there's no need for that, right? Well, we'll get to why. So not everybody is this rich, or like when they are, why not spend it on things like storytelling and amazing image assets and stuff like that, right? So they are not that rich, or maybe they are, but we make them pay like they are. They can actually pay like this. There's no need for this. So now we have the JAMstack, and the JAMstack can help us in a lot of the cases when we think about all the things we just discussed. This took me an hour in Photoshop. It's the most happy hour I've spent in the last couple of months. Because if you're French, this is super funny. If you're not, you might not know what bon maman is, but it's like a nice jam. Anyways, so what is JAMstack, right? So the term is coined by Matthias Bielman, who is the CEO of Netlify. So what he says, and he writes some very complicated sentence, so I'm going to try to read it. A modern web development architecture based on client-side JavaScript, reusable APIs, and pre-built markup. Well, he's saying a lot of things there, right? And they can mean a lot of things, but let's talk about that. So basically, JavaScript APIs markup, JAM. That's a fun acronym. So about JavaScript. So any dynamic actions in your request and response cycle are done with JavaScript. So that means that everything is done on the client side, on the front end. If you talk about APIs, all the server-side processes or database actions, they are actually abstracted into APIs. And these APIs are only accessed by your JavaScript. So everything is like abstracted away. So there's no one place. It's all more distributed. And then markup. So markup is pre-built at deploy. So this means we're building static HTML, CSS, and JSS websites again. Basically, what you do when you run your build of your front end, only then it asks your APIs, grabs all the information, and builds you this static website. And of course, there's a bunch of variation there, but that's the basic premise. So that's this. And right now, I wrote down, I have my code editor. I have markdown files, which are just, well, we all know Markdown, right? It's just writing down stuff in code terms. And then that can also be some Prismic headless CMS API somewhere. Then I have Nuxt here that can also be replaced by Gatsby, or probably not in this meetup, but most likely Gritsum. And then that goes to GitHub. And like, so basically what you do, you build locally your whole website, you have everything running, then you hit commit on your version control, so GitHub. And if you have set up Netlify, which is one of those really cool services that help you with JAMstack, it will actually see the change on your GitHub repository. And because of that, it will build your website and then upload it to something called the CDN Edge. So the CDN is basically servers that are close to you, and then the files are stored there. So what they do is that the edge means it's as close as possible to the user, which also means there's no central place. So there's no origin server. So every time I hit a commit to my GitHub to a certain branch, Netlify will take all the data from that, compile it into my static website. It's just a bunch of HTML files, and then it puts it all over the world on this CDN edge. So there's nothing in the middle that keeps the state. It's just that. And then you get results like this. So when you look at your Google audit, I actually have 100% on everything. Of course, this is my home connection. It's all kind of funny that I did this. It might not be 100% all the time. But for websites like these, which is just like a simple blog, if you do the right things and you actually make sure you upload it with Netlify in this case, these are real possibilities. And also, we spoke about carbon footprint. This website is in the 92 percentile of the world in websites. So it's only 0.15 grams of CO2 for each page. Normally, websites that are built with those bigger systems we just discussed are like 4 or 5 grams of CO2. So that's a whole lot of trees every year if you have 10,000 visits per month, right? So this is a very important thing for our future. So, and then because I did a bunch of research, actually there's much more enrichment also possible. So here, now I added something called Netlify CMS and JSON before it goes in. And basically what Netlify CMS does is it's just local to my website. So when I go to timbenniks.nl/admin, there I have a JavaScript file that does Netlify CMS. And it just looks at the JSON files in my Git repo. When I actually change something in Netlify CMS and hit save, it will do a commit on my GitHub repository, which means it's actually just a fancy text editor, but then in my browser rather than as VS Code here. And that will then on its turn trigger a release and it goes to the CDN edge. So this is the same kind of thing, but then you have put like a third-party CMS rather than just coding. And then on top, you can also, of course, add a whole bunch of third-party APIs that also give richness to your page. It can be whatever you want. Like you can do social walls and all of that stuff. So you can, of course, enrich things. And so when I started to understand this concept, when last year I was really working with this, I basically had a feeling of this. Like, things started to open up, right? You're not just a front-end developer anymore. You have to think about all these moving parts and things are going towards the cloud and you have services do other things and suddenly it all fits into place. And web development is just super cool this way. Guys, I'm going over things quite quickly. So if you have any questions, please just put them in the chat. So now this is kind of a funny one. So like, when is it not JAMstack? Because everybody thinks they're doing it, right? But when is it actually not JAMstack? So when you have a server-side rendering CMS like WordPress or Sitecore or Adobe AEM or any of those, then it's not, right? Because you still need that server. So when you have an isomorphic SPA that renders at runtime with Node, it's also not JAMstack because you still have a server that at runtime, just like PHP does, with Node, it's still the same thing. So when you put Nuxt in universal mode, that's still what happens, right? You're still running servers with an origin. And of course, when you have a monolithic app that relies like on PHP or Ruby on Rails or stuff like that. Not that those things are bad. They're totally fine. Just don't call it JAMstack and sell yourself as a JAMstack developer. So what are the actual benefits? So, yeah, am I right? Yes. So, first of all, cost, because there are hardly any servers while you have your visitors hit your website, right? So, the only real cost that you incur is when I build my system, I have a couple of things running that grab my data and build my website and then publish it. So, that's a payable part potentially. And then the rest is just CDN. So, when you pay for a month of CDN, generally it's not that expensive, and there's no servers anywhere that need to think about, oh, this website does this, blah blah blah. None of it, because it's all static. It's old school websites again. So it's pretty cheap. Like right now I'm running my website on Netlify and I'm paying $0 and it just works. So security, because there are like those server-side processes that are hackable, they are like moved away into those microservice APIs. So there's less surface area in the middle for those attacks. And of course, you can still hit those APIs, but generally you do that at build, and users never see that build system. So they don't even know where you're hitting those APIs, right? So it's much more secure. There's also kind of a better developer experience. There's no more vendor lock-in that says when you use WordPress, your PHP templates have to be this way, and unless you completely hack it or change it, you're kind of locked into something, right? So what you want to do is all these systems should be separate, should be loosely coupled. You shouldn't have to worry about how your CMS deals with SEO. Like, it's just a data bucket. Just use it that way and make your front end work the way you want. So it's more front end freedom. Like, we have more freedom as developers. And then you can use Vue.js and all the fun stuff, right? Also scaling, because your app is literally just a bunch of files. Like, I just built my own website. I rebuilt it. And I think in total, it might be 2.5 megabytes. And that's it. And there's no complicated services running behind it. So if you want to deal with that Christmas traffic, the only thing you have to do is just put it in more places in the CDN, and it just works. So that's very easy to scale. I think this is actually him crying rather than being happy. Might be the wrong give. Anyways. So I actually built a fancy JAMstack application, basically balls to the wall, everything in it. Why not? So it's a static site. It doesn't have an origin like all the stuff we just discussed, but I'm also using a bunch of other stuff with like Lambda functions, microservices, API, OAuth, the whole shebang. Like, why not try, right? I have to learn myself as well because I'm a nerd. So I chose to use Microsoft Azure as the base platform for this one. And then a lot of developers are like, why? You have a lot of other things that are fine and free. But actually, I work at Valtech, and we use a lot of Microsoft stuff. So I have a Visual Studio license. And even though Visual Studio itself is shitty, well, it's not shit. You know what? For front-end devs, it's kind of shitty. But it comes with this $140 a month Azure subscription that opens you up to anything you want Azure. So that's a great thing for me to actually figure out what Azure has to offer, right? So I can just explore and do crazy stuff. So what I built is called Strava Visualize. So what this means is I used to do a lot of running. I did marathon running. I did a bunch of biking. And what Strava is an application. So when you turn on your phone and you say run or play, it will actually track your heart rate. It will track your time, your GPS, everything. So it has, when you've done a run or a bike ride, it gives you all information that you need. And then if you're a data nerd like me, you can actually look at it. But what I wanted to do after running a marathon, I wanted to embed my Strava activity on my website and then write a blog post about it. And I couldn't do it because Strava is kind of, the iPhone app and the Android app are great, but the website is kind of, it's not so good. People don't use it a lot. So I thought, why not build my own stuff? Because I want to embed this in a nice way. So basically what I used is Vue.js, of course. I used Azure functions, which are basically the equivalent of Lambda functions in AWS or functions in, I'm blanking. Anyways, Lambda functions. I'm using CCM, which is actually a 3D tool that gives you a globe. And I'll show you in a second why I needed that. And in this case, I'm not using the Netlify CDN, but I'm using the Azure CDN. And of course, I'm using the Strava API. So let's demo and let's hope this works. So first of all, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then share another tab. So give me 1 second. So this should all work. Share screen, Chrome tab. Yes, share. Okay, I think it's working. So basically right now, what I have done is actually I didn't put it on the CDN edge because it's super expensive. And when we do conclusions from the talk, you'll see why I didn't like it so much. But if you want to use the CDN of Azure, it's extremely expensive. So guys, are you still seeing my screen? I don't think so. And something went wrong with my camera. This is very strange. Okay, we're back. Okay, so my screen is there. Thanks, dude. Okay, so let's go. So this is the application. Let's connect with Strava. Wow, my camera is doing crazy stuff. Let me try to fix it. I think we're okay now. Okay, here we go. So let's do an all-out flow. Here we go. So now we're back at the application. You see it's been logging in. It's trying to collect all my information. So what you see here are my recent rides. Of course, now that we were on lockdown in Paris, I couldn't ride as much. So my last ride is like March 12th, like 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening or afternoon. So let me just click on this and I'll show you what it does. Here we go. So getting some information. So now it grabbed all my information from the Strava ride and it will plot my my journey basically on the map. Let me just pause it quickly so I can show you what's happening. So this is a 3D world, as you can see. This is Paris. Here you can see the hills I'm conquering. Here you can see how high I am, how fast I'm going at that time, how far I have biked, the time. If I had a heart rate monitor, you'd see it too. And so let me just continue so you can see. So it's all live updates. This is the power of Vue.js, obviously. And this is my ride to work. And this is where I work. And so basically, this is what you see when you embed it in your website. So I haven't completely finished the application. But if you are a keen bike rider, you can actually use this and embed this also in your app. Just log in yourself. So I do have one other nice Strava activity I want to show you. I just have to refresh the page. So now you can see the 3D stuff nicer. So this is in Greece when I was on holiday a long time ago, actually. But I decided to do a run. And you can see in Greece, the hills are much more prevalent. So you can actually see how cool this 3D library is. And also, I'm kind of crazy that I'm doing this on my holiday in 35 degrees in the mountains in Greece. But, you know, why not? I think here I was training for the half marathon of Amsterdam. But you can see this is just kind of good fun to build. So let's go back to my previous tab and actually see how I built this. Okay, let me share my screen again. Share. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is the diagram of that application. So as you can see, right now here we have the blob storage in Azure, which is like static file storage. That is the thing that is central. But normally you don't need this and it will all be served on the CDN edge. But for the purposes of this demo, I needed this. So basically what I'm doing is so basically the data that you see in the app, all the copy and the CSS and all of that is built from GitHub. And so I don't use Netlify now, but I use Azure CI stack that basically compiles everything for me and uploads it there. So when I do a git push, that happens. So that's just normal JAMstack stuff. But then I've actually connected those Lambda functions. So we saw my OAuth flow where I logged in. That's basically this little part here. So this function doesn't actually know anything about all the other functions. So this thing is just standalone. And as you can see, there's a little bit of cache in front of all of those two. So there's not one central cache for the activities or my login. That's also decentralized. Right, so the authentication has a cache. So when I've already authenticated and my token is still valid, it just stores it here. So you don't really have to go to Strava. It just works. I think generally I always go to check, but there is a cache there. So then when I want to have the list of activities, I have the token that Strava gave back to me with which I can actually make the calls. So I store that token somewhere, and then I can just say, give me all activities for this token. So that's this user, right? The token is the user, so it knows the activities. And of course, if I've already asked for that and it's not older than like a week, I think, or a day, something. I have to figure out what I did there, but it will return the cache. Same for the activity itself. And then I have a csetml function, which is basically, it creates a JSON format that my mapping library understands. But the fun thing is here that actually I've built separate functions that are always asleep. They're never awake. They don't work unless I call one. So when I call authentication, it wakes up, it gets some information, it does some OAuth flow, gives me back a token, goes back to sleep. I then no longer pay for it, right? So you pay for what you use. If you don't use it, you don't pay. And authentication, you probably don't use that much. You use it once, and then when your token expires, you do it again. So you don't call that function much, so pretty cheap. Activities is the same. Like when I cache it, you don't even have to hit it anymore. And then, of course, the activities are a bit bigger, but this is a really nice model, and it's actually much cheaper, and it's super fast. Those are little Node.js functions. They are async, and they just work really easily. For me to understand how Microsoft Azure did all that, that was another story. But once you get it, it's very simple. So this is also JAMstack. Even though it's really fancy and there's a whole bunch of stuff, it's also JAMstack. So I want to show you guys one more thing. Because actually using webhooks to combine stuff together is really super powerful. So basically, I created this. So I created this application that I called Fatty, and I did that because I started to gain some weight again for the last couple of years, and I thought, okay, it's gonna stop now. And the way for me to not gain too much weight, or actually to lose weight, is public accountability. So I built this little application that, with the power of JAMstack and webhooks and serverless functions, actually shows my weight on the app every day after I step on the scale. And that would then actually send a tweet to the world that says Tim lost 2 kilos, or Tim didn't step on the scale. That's bad, stuff like that. So I would be publicly accountable. And I did this for the Vue.js Amsterdam conference. So from end of 2019 to beginning of 2020, I did all this. And so every day it shared a tweet when I stepped on the scale in the morning, like automatically through the power of webhooks. So this is a pretty daunting graph, but it's actually not that hard. Let's have a look. So I have a scale that's a withing scale. So it's Wi-Fi connected. So when I step on it, it actually sends my weight information to a third-party API by withings. As it turns out, they support webhooks. So the moment I step on my scale in the morning, a hook is posted to, they update stuff. So there's the latest weight value, and that actually posts a webhook. And a webhook is basically like, it's a link that's fired between machines. It's not like a user that clicks on enter, hit the link, but the machine actually does the linking, and it asks, give me this URL. And so what this withings API did is like, okay, Tim weighs 104 kilos now, and then sent the webhook to my to this one, which is my own little publish weight function that's always asleep. And the moment it gets this call, let's say, hey, Tim weighs now 104, wake up. So basically what it does, it actually goes to my Git repository for the application, for Fatty. It grabs the file that has all the JSON data about my weight over time. It adds a new entry, and it actually does git commit. So it basically does git fetch, git pull, git commit, git push with my new weight entry in it. And because my Git repository changed, Netlify is like, hey, there's a change. Let me rebuild this JAMstack website. So that means that the data of my JAMstack website is inside my codebase here. And therefore, it can just build a static website. So the website you saw here, this is like a very simple static website that has some Vue.js that shows my graph nicely with some animations and some fun stuff like that. And now we need to go to the tweet, because I step on the scale, my GitHub repo is updated, then my Netlify is updating the app, so I have a new app with a new weight value for the new day. But once Netlify is done with that deployment, it actually has a webhook that says, I had success. What do you want me to do? And I say, why don't you just tell me my tweet progress function that you're finished with the deployment? So that tweet progress function, I don't think you guys can see it because there's a banner over the slide, but what this thing actually does is the tweet progress function will call again my GitHub, get my latest JSON data that was just updated, right? And so it has the whole history of all my weight values. And now it actually can construct a nice tweet that says, since 4 hours ago, Tim lost 100 grams. That's not enough. His goal is blah, blah, blah. And so it can create this whole fun tweet and then tweet it out. It just uses the Twitter API. And so this is completely all decentralized, because those functions, they're just living somewhere. They don't know about each other. It's not one application. It's all separate micro applications. And then this is one of those tweets. So basically, now it says that I lost 100 grams, and then the last weighing was 2 days ago. So it's kind of smart. And so this was good for me because the public knew I was trying to lose weight. And if I didn't lose enough or I didn't step on the scale, people would tell me, hey, dude, why didn't you do that? Or they would say, that's great. Good for you, right? If I did lose the weight. So actually, since I think a week, I created a YouTube video about much more in depth of how I built this. And I was lucky enough that Netlify themselves tweeted about that video. So I'm super lucky that they did that. So you can either remember that link, which is not so easy, or you can just scan this with your phone and it will open the YouTube video for you. So if you feel like it, you can actually watch it there. And I really go in depth on how I built that thing and how those webhooks work and more code related things, much more that we can do now. So let's conclude. Basically, this is the biggest conclusion about JAMstack, because just the simplest JAMstack where you build all the content, all your data is in your local repository and it just builds a static site, that's relatively simple. But one step further, and you need to start to understand cloud stuff, right? How does this software as a service CMS actually work? How do I authenticate? How do I connect? All that extra stuff. So basically, like I said before, I transcended from being a front-end developer more into a web developer. Like, the web is so much bigger than just JavaScript and CSS. Actually, if you have that scope, we don't really care about that anymore, right? Then we want Maya's interface UI system that just helps us with stuff so we can actually focus on all these other complicated things. That's why StorefrontUI is such a cool idea, right? So I was like this every day after work, trying to figure this stuff out. I have a lot of those GIFs. Is there more? No. So, and then when I thought I actually did it, and especially inside the Azure environment, it's mostly like this. Because I just couldn't get that shit to work. And conceptually, it wasn't that hard. Right. So basically what I had to do a bit more fancy stuff inside this context, I had to become a cloud engineer. And honestly, I am not. Like, I know my brother, who is a cloud engineer, he knows about like 180 things more than me. But I had to just dabble into it to get this shit to work. And it's hard, man. The concepts are different. So let's see about what I learned. So what we see globally around us when we use JAMstack is basically to also simplify our architectures, right? Is to go cheaper, less hacking, stuff like that. But when you simplify, you also have a lot of small pieces that you have to orchestrate together. Like, you've seen my graphs. There are like so many things that have to connect together. And if one breaks, everything goes down. So there's all these extra things you have to understand to make that work. So when you go microservices, serverless, JAMstack, all of that combined, it doesn't mean that it actually is simpler. It might actually be harder because of the orchestration. So at least in the big monoliths, you have stuff at the same place. It doesn't mean that you'll get everything, but it's conceptual. You know, the concept is easier. You can try to find it. So like I say here, brain space, it's not free, right? even when you simplify things into smaller pieces, you just have to stretch further to understand them. It doesn't really mean it's all better, right? And also, one thing that's super cool is that clouds give stuff really for free or cheap. Like my Azure account, it's still running, and I've not even used maybe 10% of it, so it's super cool. But when it comes to the stuff that you really need, like a CDN, or maybe if you want to do a faceted search filter, you have to have like an indexation tool like Solar or stuff like that. Then it's suddenly extremely expensive. Because when you do something at the level of enterprise or at scale and you have to go live, that's the services you need. And they're just freaking expensive. And it becomes a bit annoying, to be honest. So on top of that, the interfaces of both AWS but also Azure are so bad. Like, I'm a front-end dev and I like interfaces. And I tend to understand them because I've worked on them for many, many years. This I just didn't get. And it's pretty hard to not get it if you have so much experience. And I know it's not an easy system. There's a lot of complexity there, but guys, come on. They have to fix this. And then it comes to the documentation, which like they write blog posts and examples and stuff like that, and it's literally never up to date because they iterate so fast, which is super cool, new features all the time. But then when you write about them, make sure that you update things or remove things. Because I've done so much research into, let's say, one of those Azure functions. And in the end, I ended up talking to the product lead on Twitter, like, dude, what's this? And he's like, oh, yeah, that's wrong. I did that last month. Let me change it. So they're super agile. They're super close to you, but you cannot really rely on it. And so it's just too new, I guess. It has to mature over time. And to do anything custom, you basically have to become a cloud engineer. I keep saying it. So let's go back to the title. Is JAMstack actually the future? Honestly, I think it's definitely going to be a part of it, especially when you saw the more rich apps that I created, like the Fatty application. The chunk about its content is actually JAMstack. And then you have all these things you can plug in around it that make it a mature app. So this concept of JAMstack and rendering things statically or partly statically and partly dynamically, that's going to stay. That is just something that changed our world forever. And I think that's going to stay. But stuff around it's just going to change, as it always does. So thank you for watching and sticking with me. Let me just check how many people we have. Wow, we still have 16. This is awesome.
We still have 16. This is very awesome, actually. This is the first time I'm running a stream meetup, a live meetup, and then the numbers on the call stays the same from the beginning to the end.
So they're either bots or they're awesome. How about that?
Yeah, they're all awesome. They are all awesome. They are watching us right now, team.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I'll bring Maya to the stage too. Remove yours. Here we go. Three of us. Welcome back.
Hey, let me put my live back.
Yeah. Again, thanks again, both of you. You both are great. Both
Thank you very much.
Parts were
Thank you.
amazing, as expected. I knew that already. So probably people on the.
I'm just gonna take a selfie of myself like this. Wait.
You should do
Wait, me too. Me too.
There we go.
Wait, we have screenshot. Why are we doing this?
Yes. So let's ask audiences if they have any questions. So apparently they don't have. Someone just clapped for us.
I'm very happy with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So do you have anything to share with us, Maya and team?
I want to thank you for being here. This is great.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you very much.
I thank you for organizing this. It's super cool. I like it. And it's so great to see you again virtually.
Yeah, we haven't seen you in like a year, maybe more, man.
Yeah, you, Verona.
Yeah, exactly. One question though, team, from you. Maybe sure. you can answer. You can tell us about your video blog. So you are recently giving some stuff out, and those are cool. You know, I'm a big fan though.
Oh, so thank you. That's cool. Well, you know what? This started in a funny way because last year I decided, okay, I need to do more community stuff, so I'm going to do talks. That's how we met at the conferences. That's how I met Maya, because I've been working on a long time, just internal projects, just running the grind, doing stuff, but never showing what we did. And then this year, for some reason, I had the brilliant idea around Christmas to make a video about webcams, because why not? We're creative people, right? Oh, there's a little question. Yes, guys, it is publicly available. I'll share the link for you.
I need to let's read the question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. You want me? Oh, sorry. Yeah, they're asking if this Strava visualization app is publicly open.
I think it's open source, no?
Yeah, it is, and it's also open source. I'll share with you the stuff. But let's get back to that video stuff, because then for some reason I made that video because I wanted to, because I had a creative urge, and then for some reason I thought, let's do one every week. And then after 3 weeks I was like, but why did I do this? I have so much work. I have so much stuff to do, and now I make a video and I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah.
And then I just got the creative bug. It's so much fun, and turns out I have stuff to say in a different format than I thought I would, because I've been writing stuff and I couldn't really, I don't know, it's not for me. I'm more a creative type, so you can see the guitars here. Like I always do this kind of, I prefer that for some reason. It's not the smartest move because it's very, very complex. And
But
now I
it's
want to
easier.
buy all the things. Like Maya has all the stuff I want, actually. She has all the tools.
All right. This
But yes, thanks for bringing that up. So guys, if you want to see more videos, like I actually did a video about my talk or in the same context, but I also do a bunch of interviews, of which Maya is one. She was my first one.
Yeah,
'Cause I really
and you make it an hour. No one watches.
No, we're learning over time. No, but what it is, like, I really
Yeah.
enjoy speaking to people who are in the community. For example, like you also organizing this. I want to know what's behind and why you do that and how that works. And so I've managed to get like a bunch of really cool people to tell their stories. And I want to continue this and eventually have like a nice catalog and then learn from everybody's questions and then have like a to-do list of, you want to be community person or you want to do talks, here's all the people who are awesome at it, tell you what to do and go.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the point, but it's going to take some time.
Absolutely.
But wait, he still promised me about a series of videos about accessibility since last year.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, to-do list.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in the backlog somewhere, right?
Well, at work, accessibility is day to day, but for my videos, for now, it's on the back burner, but it will get there. Let me check what level it's at. Yeah, it's at like, okay, I had like 15 other videos first. Sorry.
Cool.
I think I may start that one before you even.
All right.
But
So
again, yeah.
here is our round table. I would like to thank you both again and thank all the people that have been on the call and on the YouTube. They were watching us. They spent time with us. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, all of you. So, and let's say hope to see you again very soon,
please.
with Team and Maya, maybe in other meetups. It's all about community, you know.
Exactly.
So, and have a great day, night, evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and see you soon then.
Thanks again.
Thank
everyone.
you for inviting us. Thank you everyone for seeing us, for watching until the end. It was amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye. Bye bye.